What's up, Brian Tong here, and these are my first hands-on impressions of the new Samsung Galaxy S20 family, the S20, the S20 Plus, and the S20 Ultra. I got to spend about an hour with them at an early Samsung preview event, so I didn't get any real in-depth time to test out all the features. We didn't get to take photos to bring back for comparison, but just enough time to get really some initial impressions. And I do have specific details related to some of the new features that I asked the Samsung team. So let's just get into it. And first up, obviously, the Galaxy lineup. The S20 is an upgrade from the S10 and brings a 6.2-inch AMOLED display with a 120 Hz refresh rate. They call it their Infinity O display. That's near bezel-less, but you still see, the small, thin black line at the top of the bottom. Then the S20 Plus is an upgrade from the S10 Plus and brings a larger 6.7-inch display. It is using the same display for the entire lineup. And then we have the S20 Ultra. This is the big bad beast at 6.9 inches in size, but for a phone this big, it still actually fit in my pants without, peeking out the top. That tend to be, I'll just say, a little more form-fitting. Now, the front-facing camera is being moved to a punch hole centered at the top of all three models. The side edges of the new S20s aren't as angular, so it has this feel of more like a squared-off body, a rectangle with just like a nice bezel, rounded corners, instead of that more dramatic slope that was angular of the S10 line. The screen, it looks amazing like you would expect, but I learned some specifics about the dynamic 120 Hz refresh rate from Samsung. So out of the box, the phone is running at Quad HD 3200 by 1440 resolution at 60 Hz, but you can go into the settings and then scale back the display from QHD to Full HD, which is 2400 by 1080, to turn on the 120 Hz refresh rate. So this doesn't come out at 120 Hz out of the box. You have to go into it in the settings, and if your battery goes down to 5% at any time, it will automatically switch to 60 Hz for you as well. So for all you gamers out there, not only will you have this 120 Hz option, but they've doubled the touch sensitivity on the phone with a 240 Hz touch sensor. And that's really going to come in handy with games like Fortnite and others. So also, all the phones are 5G enabled, but the different models support different flavors of 5G. If you're not familiar, there's really two of them that are working together right now. Millimeter wave is one of the flavors that's really best in dense urban areas and crowded environments with a line of sight. Sub-6 gigahertz is the other flavor of 5G that covers, more broader, widespread areas like suburban or rural areas. So ideally, both of them will work together to give you the best 5G coverage possible. Now, the S20 and S20 Plus support sub-6 gigahertz, while the S20 Ultra supports both sub-6 and millimeter wave. And we weren't really able to see what effect, if any, this has on the performance of the phones, but it'll be different depending on the area you live in. And we know 5G network connectivity and consistency still has a long ways to go. It will be great when it's everywhere, but that's still not anytime soon. We also have the biggest cosmetic change on here. Obviously, the big camera patch on the back. You cannot miss this. But one of the focuses this year from Samsung was to give consumers a pro-grade camera with a DSLR-like experience. The camera patch size is different depending on the S20 model you're looking at, but the standout obviously is the S20 Ultra that is just jam-packed with the most camera features. Now, the camera sensors on the entire S20 line are larger than their predecessor. The S20 Ultra takes a 108 megapixel photo, while the S20 and S20 Plus can get up to 64 megapixels. They're using a process called pixel binning to now take 9 pixels and then combine them into one, resulting in reduced noise and a huge improvement in low light photography from the previous model. There's also a new feature called multiple ISO composition that will allow a photo to be optimized depending on what's in it, kind of like items or scenery or sky versus buildings, with up to a 6400 ISO. And again, we weren't allowed to take any photos and bring them back for comparison with this initial first look. But the biggest new feature that's just on the S20 Ultra, Space Zoom. I know it's a catchy name, but it's also really impressive. Now, Space Zoom is a combination of new hardware that brings a hybrid optical zoom and AI-powered digital zoom. The Space Zoom lens itself is sitting sideways, so they are laying a camera module flat like a periscope. By using this periscope method, it allows them to get this 10x optical zoom without having a protruding camera lens on the phone. And that's partly why the camera patch on the Ultra is so big, but there are benefits. Now, you'll get a true 10x optical zoom with no loss of quality. Then the AI digital zoom adds another factor of 10 on top of that, giving you the 100x space zoom. It's honestly pretty crazy to just like scroll your finger on screen for the first time. I was playing with it and it goes all the way up to a 100x zoom. Now on screen, there are quick jump buttons to, let's say, 30x and 100x and others, but it's kind of insane. Again, when you're using it in person, just you keep on scrolling, it keeps on getting closer and closer. Now the S20 and S20 Plus have a 3x optical zoom, so add that factor of 10 for the digital zoom, and those two models go up to a 30x zoom. You can check out all the camera specs here, and feel free to pause and just take a good look at them if you want. For video, the entire S20 lineup records up to 8K video at 24 frames per second. You can edit the 8K video directly on your device or reduce it down to 4K or full HD. You can also take a still image from that video file, that 8K video file, and that'll be a 33 megapixel image. They've also improved the video stabilization by supporting not only up and down and side to side like they have before, but there's a rolling video motion if it's moving and rotating that also has improved the stabilization. You can also cast this content to a Samsung 8K QLED TV. This is a nice ecosystem play, or upload it directly to YouTube from your device. We weren't told how big the file sizes would be, but that's another really cool hook from your phone, 8K straight up posted on your page. Now, new content capture mode they were able to let us demo is called single take photo. And once you select it on the camera app, it records for a total of 10 seconds. So during that time, I was moving around a guy juggling, and his name was Blue, and it takes an AI best moment, an ultra wide shot, a live focus shot, an AI filtered photo, a smart crop, forward or backwards for video. And so from this single take photo, where you have all this different type of content, you can then post that on social media. It just batches it all together. And when you select that single take photo in your gallery, you can pick whichever one you like from it. Now it can give you up to 10 photos and 4 videos depending on what you do in those 10 seconds. And the file itself ranges from 50 to 70 megabytes. I got to try it out a couple times, but this is just a really clever, slick way of capturing content that I could see people doing that are using it regularly. But one of the biggest new features for Samsung and their ecosystem has to be Quick Share. It's their version of AirDrop, and it allows you to share a picture or a video or whatever with up to 5 people simultaneously with no limit on the file size whatsoever. Now, they didn't demo this for us at the preview event, but I heard them mention it, so I asked a little more about it, and it will be available on Samsung devices. First, I was told the feature would come on the S20, and then in a later software update, you'll get it for the S10 line and the Note 10 lineup. But over time, Samsung devices as far back as the S4 will be able to use Quick Share. And this is just a huge move for a feature that, as simple as it sounds, has kept people away from switching to a new ecosystem. We also have Google. They've partnered with Samsung for video chat with Google Duo with native integration in the phone app. There's an icon there. Again, we couldn't test it, but it's cross-compatible across OSs, and then you can video chat with up to 8 people. All S20 models are loaded with 12 gigs of RAM at any storage capacity, but if you get the maxed out internal storage of 512 gigs for the S20 Ultra model specifically, you'll get 16 gigs of RAM. So there's another cool feature here related. You'll have the ability to specifically select apps to lock into RAM in the settings. You'll get 3 apps for 12 gigs RAM, and then 5 apps that you can lock in for 16 gigs of RAM on the S20 Ultra model, that super beefed up one. Now, any games, think of like Microsoft's Forza Street or Fortnite or something simple like a Twitter app that you don't want to have to wait to load every time. You can launch it and it can be locked into RAM. You can select those. Now, as we start wrapping up some of its features, the S20 lineup comes with Samsung's Knox security features for both personal and enterprise use. You can also, again, take a look at these main specs here for all the models. We weren't given any battery life numbers in hours from Samsung, but the S20, S20 Plus, and S20 Ultra, they have batteries at 4,000, 4,500, and 5,000 milliampere hours respectively across the line. They all come with a 25-watt fast charger in the box, but the S20 Plus supports the 45-watt fast charger, so if you purchased it before or you could buy it separately, it's compatible. Colors for the S20 will be Cosmic Gray, Cloud Blue, and Cloud Pink. For the S20 Plus, we're talking Cosmic Gray, Cloud Blue, and Cosmic Black. And then for the S20 Ultra, just Cosmic Gray and Cosmic Black. The lineup will be priced starting at $999.99 for the S20, $1199.99 for the S20 Plus, and $1399.99 for the S20 Ultra. And you look at that pricing, and yes, fine, the top line Ultra starts at almost $1,400. But again, to me, there's a lot of tech packed in here, and I don't like complaining about the prices because it's up to you. Like, I can't tell you what you value. So if that product is worth it to you, then go ahead and buy it because this is a beast. Now, pre-orders start February 11th. Then the S20 lineup goes on sale March 6th. And again, there's a whole lot here. And this was just for my first impressions and all the new details that I asked the Samsung team about directly on site. There's going to be a whole lot more to learn and really just figure out once I get to spend more time with the new S20 lineup. But when you look at this at its first glance, you know, the design, the specs, and all the things they're doing with the camera, sheesh, I mean, the S20, S20 Plus, and S20 Ultra, they've set the bar very, very high right out of the gate, specifically the S20 Ultra for the first flagship phone of 2020. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the competition matches up and stacks up, because this is just a beast right out of the start. So, you know, if you like this video, you know what to do. Just give me that thumbs up, subs up, and hit that notification bell, ding, to get all my videos when they drop. And I'll have plenty more from Samsung's S20 launch and everything else around the Samsung Unpacked launch. So take care for now. Be safe, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.